Hello again. Welcome to video number 4. I thought today I would talk about how to rebuild yourself. And this is brilliant. This is truly special. Once you get through, or once you get substantially further along your journey of grief and sadness and anger and denial and whatever other stages of grief you go through, remember the fact that it's not a straight path. It can go up, down, left, right, backwards, forwards, all over the blooming place. One minute you might feel okay, accept it, then you might feel angry, denial, back to shock, and then back. It's all over the place. But once you then stabilize, you can start looking at things with curiosity rather than fear, rather than the fear of the unknown. Once you get to that point, you go, okay, well, I'm not quite as scared as that as I was before. Now, maybe I want to try this. Maybe I want to try that. You become curious. And that is so uplifting and so empowering, because you don't feel like you literally don't feel like your world's spiraling anymore. You're actually reclaiming some of that control, because that's what it comes down to, is control. If these things have been taken out of your control, that feels horrendous, because you've just completely lost yourself, your whole world, your identity. If that goes out of your control, then you feel powerless and lost. So what you do is you start reclaiming some of that control. And the first thing you have to realize is that most things in our life are out of our control. You can't control what the weather's going to do. You can't control whether you get the job you apply for. You can't control how someone's going to act. If you think they're going to act differently and they act in a completely different manner. There is very little you can control in this life, but you can control yourself. You can control how you react to things. You can control how you respond to things. You can control how your body is, your mind is. You can control that. And that's what the anchor is. You focus on that, of what you can control, rather than what you cannot control. And once you realize that in reality, we have very little grip on anything in our life apart from ourselves, then that becomes much more solid, a much solid, firmer foundation to rebuild from. And that's where you put your focus in of the person you want to be and the person you think you can be. So that's the first step of rebuilding, is accepting what you can and cannot control. And then you start, like I say, you're looking at things through a curious eye, a curious lens of actually going, okay, well, maybe I could try that. I've always wanted to try that. Maybe I'll give that a try. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't. Or maybe I can try this. Simple things to start with. Simple things, a recipe, anything that you think, actually, I've never had the chance to do that. Now is the time I can do that. Like I say, new interests, new hobbies. And it's small victories. That's where it starts with. It starts with something that small and that simple. A victory of getting out of bed, getting dressed, getting washed, watering your plants, feeding yourself. It can even be that minute and that smaller scale to start with, because even those responsibilities, or those things that you have to do, hygiene, anything like that can become, it feels like a huge burden. It feels like it's unachievable, even simple little things. But you start, again, as time goes on, and you start putting the pieces back together, and the new building blocks that are in your solid foundation. I don't know if anyone to know of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a really good thing to look up, which is your basic foundations of what you actually physically need as a human being, which is food, oxygen, a roof over your head, warmth, that kind of stuff. And then it actually goes up through different needs. That's worth checking out. So obviously I'm talking about a basic fundamental level. And then it sort of goes up to nurturing, love, respect, all this kind of stuff. So yes, so I've lost train of thought completely. So little victories, small victories, and then those small victories become bigger victories, things that you wouldn't expected yourself to be able to do. Like for me, for example, dance class, there was not a clue, not a chance that 6 months ago I would have taken up a dance class. And you look back at it and you realize how far you've come. You actually, rather than looking at what you haven't achieved or where you think you should be or and where you're not, you look backwards and you realize how far you've come. That was another good metaphor, actually. Someone said that if you're climbing a mountain and you look at the summit and you realize how far away it is and how daunting it is, then what you do is you stop and you turn around and you look how far you've come and you look at the view and you appreciate that rather than how daunting and scary the summit looks. Anyway, so yes, so small victories, which then become big victories, and lists. Make a list. Someone told me to do this, and I never did it, but I think it is helpful for some people because it's something very rewarding and therapeutic of actually ticking off something on a list. You know, anything. Wash your car, tick. You know, apply for this job, tick. Make a phone call to a friend, tick. It's just something symbolic in that, which actually releases those kind of those endorphins that you actually have done something. You can tick it mentally and physically, tick it off. That is rebuilding. It's not waiting for one major life altering event or feeling or situation that then makes everything okay and makes everything become magically clear. It's not that. It is 100 little steps. And that is what gives you your power back, your control back, which then gives you your stability back and your routine and a sense of purpose. Because when you lose that, you're literally wondering where you are, who you are. You just head in the clouds and you're just all over the shop. So once you start getting the foundations in place, you regain your strength and your stability and your routine. Get a routine. You know, anything, get up at a certain time, and then when you get out of bed, make your bed. That's, little simple routines, simple things that you kind of, that's how you rebuild your mind. That's how you slowly, over time, that becomes your new reality. That becomes your new normal. And you kind of use that as a template. And again, that becomes, your steps become wider and wider and larger. And then before you know it, and as hard as it seems when you're in that state of mind, but you look back and you go, bloomin' heck, I actually did that. I've achieved this. And again, make a list of what you've achieved, what you've actually done. And you can look at it and go, oh my God, I've actually done that. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do that in the state I was in. And that gives you an immense sense of self-respect and purpose and gratitude. So that is how I would say to rebuild yourself. So baby steps. Again, everything is baby steps. Being kind to yourself, and then just slowly, methodically, logically, because when you're in quite a negative headspace, it's very easy to confuse your logical thoughts with your illogical thoughts. So again, make a list, rebuild. Logical versus illogical. What is a logical thought? What is an illogical thought? What is a helpful thought? What is a unhelpful thought? And something I've been learning about now is the fact that you can challenge those unhelpful thoughts when they pop into your head, because they will pop into your head, especially if you overthink and ruminate. And you can take that thought and you can analyze it and say, this is just a thought. This is not reality. This is what I think, but this is not real. This is not real life. This is what I think it is, but no one else does. This is you're beating yourself up when there's no reason to. So it's learning to challenge those thoughts and acknowledge them. Acknowledge them first of all. You can't disregard them because they'll always be there. But you realize that it's just a thought. That's not real life. You know, your real life is the foundations that you've been making, is the building blocks that you put into place, and that hard work and hard graft and that you put in. That is a reality, and people will see that. People will gravitate towards that and have respect for you and admire you for what you've gone through and what you've achieved, and how you're still fighting, how you're still going. And again, in me now, I'm making these blooming videos that I find incredibly helpful, because it helps me get it out of my head, and I'm hoping that it helps other people. Just knowing what I did to help me through the tough times and learning how to rebuild. And again, you start doing that, and then you will find joy, and you will find yourself smiling, and you actually go, oh my God, I've just smiled, I've just laughed, I've forgotten what that feels like. And that starts coming back more and more frequently. You start feeling like your old self. Well, I say your old self because you're not your old self. That your old version of you is gone. And hopefully what is the person that's in that place is someone truly incredible, that someone that you never foresaw yourself becoming or capable of becoming. And I mentioned that in the other video, and that is amazing when you actually know what you've gone through, and that you're still fighting, and you can laugh and you can smile and you can be grateful and look at the beauty in the world, rather than solely on the pain and the grief and the sadness. But you do it through baby steps. And like I said, it's not one magical moment where, you know, everything becomes clear and everything evaporates, all this negativity, all this grief. You learn to live with it. You learn to live with it, but all of a sudden it doesn't drag you down as much. That weight that you're pulling, that huge boulder that you're pulling, eventually becomes smaller and smaller, and sometimes you don't even realize you're pulling it. And before you know it, I'm trying to say like I've got all the answers, certainly don't, but before you know it, you can put that boulder, which now is the size of a pebble, in your pocket and carry it with you, rather than dragging it. So it will always be there, but you learn to live with it, and you naturally find joy again in the world, and connections and friendships and, you know, future relationships. And that's what's amazing. That is truly incredible, but it takes a long time to get there, and it is not through one giant leap. It is through baby steps, and it is through 100 small victories, rather than waiting for one big moment. But anyway, again, I hope that helps. Please let me know. That's why I'm making these videos, just to offer my support and advice. Like I say, I'm literally just a regular bloke who's had quite a traumatic year and 10 months through many different life-changing events. But that's what helps me, and I hope that it can help anyone who listens too. All right, thank you. Catch you later. Bye.